Good day, guys. I was working on a game uh, on Monogame C Sharp when I faced some problem related to RenderTarget2D. I'm just making this as a note that I can to myself, refer myself in the future if I face any such problem. So basically, what was happening is whenever I turned render target as the my render target 2D texture as the target texture for my graphics device, the entire screen will come black. So I was finally able to solve it, but it took me 12 hours. I don't want to face that 12 hours of uncertainty again. uh, so I just made this video. So initially you have to basically initialize your render target 2D. So this is what I'm doing. This is the graphics device. It needs the graphics device, the width and the height, that is the size of the size of the render target that you need, and then some other parameters you can look online for these. Okay, and once it is initialized, this render target is going to stay. You don't have to call init again and again. And then what you will be doing, that there are basically two stages. One is drawing the images, drawing the sprite onto the. So first you draw the sprites onto the render target, and so basically what we do, initially the graphics device will be drawing everything directly onto the screen. So we'll tell the graphics device, in this line we are telling the graphics device that, hey graphics device, from now onwards whatever I'm asking you to draw, you have to draw it to the render target, and I'm supplying it to the render target. Okay, and next I'll have to begin the sprite batch again. Okay, because the sprite batch will basically forget everything that was done before that. Okay, and it will start a new batch. So sprite batch will start a new batch, and then I have to clear it with a color, so that whatever was there on the graphics device earlier, that will be erased. If you don't want it, like if you have a persistent screen that you there may be specific cases where like a floor, if I'm talking about a top down floor where there are blood splatters, so you don't need to remove the old blood splashes to put the new one. You can draw it on the top of each other. So in that case you don't need to basically uh, use this step, you can just skip it. But normally in most of the cases, this is the line that you have to write after begin. So it will be clearing it with any color you supply it. Usually it is transparent, that is 0000 color 0000. Usually we used to draw it completely transparent and black. It will not be visible black, it will be invisible black, that is completely transparent. Okay, then there is sprite batch end. So this will basically end the batch. So between this begin and end, after setting the target, whatever you are drawing here, just like you draw in the normal monogame uh, function, whatever you are drawing here, it will not be drawing it to the screen, the game scene, the game screen. Okay, the application screen, it will not be drawing it to the application screen, rather it will be drawing it to the target that you have supplied it, that is this one. Okay, sorry, not this one, this one. Okay, and see here the camera means I am not using any transformation matrix. So now whatever I have to give it means whatever I want to draw onto this render target, it has to be within this limit. Like if I give something at 400 into 200, so that is outside this range, so it will be trying to draw it outside the render target, which will not be drawing. Okay, and yeah, those transformations you have to do basically if you want to draw something on the render target specific to a particular position on the screen, then you have to basically subtract the camera position that is there at that time and then add it later, so something like that. But I'll not be going means that is not the topic of the video. The topic of the video is basically to make the render target function. This is basically a bit advanced video, so I'll not be going into all those details. So next is, okay, so basically I did the drawing on the render target. Here you draw the textures, the sprites and whatever you want on the render target, and then you call spritebatch.end. And then you have to, once you do this, since earlier you set this one as the target, now you have to set target as null. So once you are using null as the target, it will be defaulting to the application screen. Okay, so now we are back to drawing to the application screen. Okay, so I think this is clear. Now there is very important thing to be considered here, the thing that I was doing wrong and the reason for which the graphics that I drew previously, means previous to this, calling this, was not coming in the screen. So how I solved it is, as you start drawing in the game, all the render target related graphics, I'll write. Okay, so this is very important. First draw all the render target related graphics and then move to the main game rendering. So you call this here render image to the images to the target. This one you call at the beginning of your render step. Okay, so you set the render target and then you don't have to limit yourself to one render target. There may be multiple render targets. So once one is complete, you can again, like once you have called spritebatch.end here, then you can again call set the second render target and draw it there. Okay, and finally once you are done with drawing your graphics to all the required render targets, then you can call this one graphics device dot set render target null. So now application screen is activated. Now whatever you draw after this will be directly to the application screen. So once you finish calling this function, then you continue with your game scene, rendering your game scene. Okay, and then depending on where you want to draw this graphics, like if I'm making a sky, I will be keeping it like I'll be first drawing my game, then my and then my UI. So basically after calling this function, I will be, yeah, so see, this is my rendering. Okay, so this is what you have to follow. First, all the rendering has to be done to the RenderTarget2Ds. Okay, then you draw your game. Okay, once you call this null. If you don't call this null, all the graphics will be drawing, will continue drawing to the last render target that you activated. So you have to call this. Okay, then you have to draw all the game graphics. So this is a lot of graphics basically, and all of this will be drawing to the application area. And then after that, because I want my sky, suppose I am using my RenderTarget2D to act as a sky. So my sky will not be above UI, it will be drawn, so it needs to be drawn before UI. So then I'll have to draw render target to, then I'll have to draw render target to screen. Okay. And finally, once I'm done with this, I'll just normally continue drawing the UI. So this one will basically come here. Okay, and yes, one more thing that may sometimes be a problem, that if you have called spritebatch.begin on some other function, means by some other way outside of this function, when you are calling this, if you have just means you have already called begin, then you have to call end before calling this, means spritebatch.end before calling this function, otherwise it will give an error. Same thing here, if you have already called begin, these are standalone functions, that is the reason I am calling begin and again and again. Otherwise, in order to, yes, one more benefit of calling this is that you can set the transformation matrix as null or whatever you want. Okay, now I guess that's it. Thank you.